Audrey, welcome to Alignment Academy.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I know, I feel like this is a long time coming. And for everyone who is listening, I saw Audrey on TikTok 7 months ago, 8 months ago. And I actually haven't even told you this, Audrey, but I was actually trying to have you on my podcast for like months before I actually reached out to you. But I don't know if you know this, but I think your Instagram was like not linked to your TikTok correctly. So I kept on trying to like click your Instagram, but it would just take me to be like, person's not available or whatever. So I was like, you know what? In divine timing, I will have her on my podcast. But I saw all of your breakup content while I was going through a breakup too. And truthfully, I just felt so not alone. So I'm so grateful that I found you on TikTok all those months ago.
Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I feel like there were so many kinks in that time frame of my life where I was like, oh God, I need to figure this out. But yeah, divine timing for sure. And I'm glad this lined up because we definitely have a lot of synchronicities in our journey and just like a lot of similarities. So I'm so glad to be here and that our journeys are, relatively the same. It's so great to meet like-minded people.
Yes, yes. So let's go ahead and just start at the beginning. Tell us who you are, what you do, and maybe how you got started. I don't know if you, I mean, I found you right like 7 or 8 months ago, but I don't know how you got started like in the online world. So I would love to know a little bit about like your path and how you got here.
Oh gosh, yes, that is a it's a whirlwind of a journey, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet as I can. But hi to everyone. My name's Audrey Brothers. I am a certified holistic wellness coach, but I focus mostly on mindset and relationship healing. I'm also a yoga instructor in training at the moment.
Yay.
My journey has been a roller coaster. I was not in the online space for ever. Like this, where I'm at right now, I never would have thought I was going to be here. It's just one of those things that kind of just unfolded naturally. I went to college for grad school. I mean, excuse me, for for a psychology degree. And then I enrolled in grad school to be a therapist and I kind of just pivoted directions. But I ended up in the corporate world and it never felt in alignment to me. I always kind of just felt like I was going through the motions. And then when COVID happened, I had a lot of time for self-reflection. I was working from home and I realized I just was not doing what I wanted to do. And I kind of just started posting on TikTok for fun, sharing things that I was learning because I stumbled across Reiki and I got Reiki certified. And that kind of was like this whole catalyst for where I am now. I was posting on TikTok that kind of blew up in a way. And I kind of was like, all right, this is really fun. Like I'm loving doing this. I'm using my voice in a new way. This is very outside my comfort zone, but I'm gonna like stick with it. Eventually, I decided to quit my corporate job and I was also in school to become a certified holistic wellness coach through IIN. I got certified, and all throughout this time, I kind of dabbled in spirituality through chakras, through Reiki, through meditation, you name it. I just went down all the rabbit holes. And then eventually, after quitting my corporate job, I kind of started doing coaching and content creation full time. And
Mhm.
then I feel like there were so many little moments in retrospect that I look back and I'm like, all of these things, all of these podcasts on spirituality that I was like listening to and learning about, all these books that I read, all the TikTok rabbit holes I went down about
Mm.
spirituality were preparing me for my breakup. And so when my
Mhm.
breakup happened, I felt just ready. I was like, you know what? I have all the tools, all the knowledge to help me navigate through this process of my life. And kind of from there, I shifted my coaching to help people move through stages of grief and move through challenging moments of relationships and learning to just kind of let go of what no longer serves us and kind of navigate all these new chapters of uncertainty. So it's been a whirlwind of a journey, but
But it's all perfect. It feels like when you look back at your life, you can always see the divine intervention and all the little things that led up to the bigger place that you are now. But it's really hard to see in the middle sometimes that it's perfect, but it is.
100%. And they say too, like you can understand things like my whole throughout COVID, the last like 5 or so years, I've been on this journey of, healing and like letting go of the self and listening to all the like books and podcasts and you name it. And I grasped all of this knowledge and I understood it, but then, there's certain moments in life where it finally just clicks. And it was my
Yes.
breakup where I just finally understood it and I knew exactly how to apply everything that I learned. And so that's kind of just what made me pivot, my coaching services and things like that. And it's been amazing.
1,000%. And it's like that difference between you're like, you know something or you know it, like you know it for yourself, right? And I think that those are beautiful moments when we're like, I've intellectually heard this saying so many times, but I've never actually understood what it meant until this moment now. And I think that times of radical change in our life, like breakups or job changes or just any rock bottom that you go through, it's like, yeah, okay, if you have the spiritual knowledge, now you're in the arena. You have to actually work and apply it and do the things that you are saying that you're a match to, right? So I know that there was so much embodiment that has probably put you on the path. But I want to go back to your breakup a little bit because my audience already knows that I went through one, but I've also had a lot of people in my DMs in the last couple months saying, Kristen, I'm in a rock bottom too. I just lost my job. I'm going through a breakup. The thing that really helped me feel less alone was just remembering that like everyone, almost everyone has gone through a really, really bad breakup in their life. So I want to just go back to that moment for a second. We don't have to stay there, but for a second. And, you know, you said you were in an 8-year relationship. So what was like really the lead up to did you end it? And like, what was the lead up to that decision of uncoupling with your partner?
We had a very beautiful relationship. You know, he was my best friend. He was my safe space. We had a very healthy, loving relationship. But I think when you get into a relationship in your early 20s, you're not fully developed, right? And you attract the partner that you need at that point in time. And I think because of societal expectations, and this is, you know, my personal beliefs here, people can take all this with a grain of salt, but I think we attract a partner we need at that point in time. And he came into my life at the exact point in time that I needed him. He was the sunshine that I needed on like a very cloudy chapter of my life.
Mm,
And I think within the first year, I probably knew that he wasn't my long-term person. I held on to him because I didn't want to be alone. And I had to do a lot of self-reflection on this, like in retrospect, after we like split paths. But I held on to the relationships for a very long time, like way past his expiration date, even though like we connected,
yeah.
like he was a beautiful partner. He did nothing wrong, but we had a lot of different values and we had very different visions of the future. And then I think because of all this work I've done on myself over the last 4 or so years, it kind of was a bigger catalyst for me to really hone in on my vision of the future and the direction I'm going. And I just kind of felt like we were growing in different directions. And then it was in November of 2020, I just kind of had this, I think it was like eclipse season that, yeah, made me really turn inwards and reflect on my life. And I just kind of got this overwhelming feeling of anxiety. Like my body was truly starting to reject the relationship. And I had anxiety for months to the point where it was crippling. Like I couldn't get out of bed and it was nothing I'd ever experienced before. Then I just realized like, all right, I've got to leave the relationship. I mean, we parted ways. I moved home for maybe like a month and a half just because I didn't want to give up on the relationship right away. Then after a month and a half of like being home, I was like, you know what? I don't want to give up yet. Like I'm going to move back in. We're going to like try to work this out. And the anxiety just came back. And it was just like this very, very tumultuous experience, essentially, like in that chapter. And ultimately I just realized like, all right, this is time. You know, it's really hard to
Wow.
tell. Like I love you dearly, but this just isn't for me at this point in time. And he completely understood. We had a very open, honest communication style. He knew everything I was going through and vice versa. And he held such an open space in his heart for all of it. But we just decided to split for numerous reasons. One, just because we kind of were growing in different directions. And I've always wanted to move and he never did. And just there was things that created a lot of resistance throughout the journey. And
Did he ultimately like agree with the split at the end?
yeah, we both realized that we had a lot of growing to do individually. And I think at some points in relationships, you can hit a wall of stagnancy. And we kind of realized we were going in circles for a long time. And there
Yeah.
was a lot of stagnancy. There wasn't a lot of individual or, you know, collective growth on either ends of the spectrum. And so we just both agreed like this is the best thing for us at this point in time.
Wow. And I think that there's also, in some aspects, a level of holding yourself back from growth when you're in a really long-term relationship because the identity that you get into together, I feel like during that first year, there is like malleability and like who you decide to be in the relationship. But after that, it's almost like there's like this unwritten agreement. Well, at least this is my experience, right? I'm not going to speak for the entire world, but for me, I felt like there was like this unwritten agreement of like, this is the role you play in this relationship. This is the role I play in this relationship. And like, we're operating under these rules. And, if anybody kind of sways away from that, then that might rock the boat. And we both love each other. So let's not rock the boat. I am quickly interrupting this episode to remind you guys that if you're a listener, which clearly you are, I have created a free meditation for all of you. This meditation was built out of my rock bottom when I needed to trust the universe and release a lot of anxiety I was feeling, and I didn't know how. So I learned how to trust the universe, and I'm going to teach you how in this meditation. It's really practicing this feeling of being held and supported and remembering that you actually are held and supported by the universe in every single moment. All you have to do to get this meditation is to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, and then go ahead and head over to my podcast Instagram at Alignment Academy Podcast. Give it a follow and then message me on there with a screenshot of your rating or review, whatever platform you're listening on, and I will send you the meditation. Okay, now back to the episode. Looking at your journey, looking at my journey, I've had so many friends that have gone through breakups. I feel like it is so important for you to have that time, however that looks, to individually kind of check in and be like, am I allowing myself to evolve in the identity that I desire and my soul wants to be? Because I think it's really easy. I mean, I guess my follow-up question to that is like, do you think that there was a level of people pleasing that was occurring in your relationship that maybe led to you feeling like you were not your full authentic self towards the end?
100%. I think I was shrinking myself to fit into the relationship and into society's standards. A lot of my friends are in long-term relationships or got engaged, married, pregnant, have had kids, houses, all in the 8 years that I was with my partner. And, it created this pressure to hold on, even though there was a deep knowing within me that was like, it's time to let go. But I think I put a lot of pressure, if I'm being honest, I put a lot of pressure on him too, to fill up my cup in a lot of ways. And that's a total reflection of me. And that's a hard truth that I've had to face coming out of this experience, because it's made me turn inwards and be like, all right, my happiness is my responsibility. But I kind of put a lot of it on him because I wasn't fulfilled in a lot of the other areas of my life. And I was solely focusing on my relationship to like fulfill all of my needs. And that's just not the reality of things. And so there's just a lot of things that kind of led up to the breakup, but it's very cordial, very civil. And like, there's so much love on either end still, but yeah.
Wow. And I feel like it's even more, I don't want to call it dramatic, but like the fact that now your path has unfolded into like a relationship coach from your breakup. Is that how it happened? Like you went through your breakup and you went through the grief and then like you kind of pivoted into this area?
Yeah, 100%. I never would have expected to be here, but I think the universe works in its own mysterious ways, and I'm super grateful for how it unfolded, but I would not be here if it weren't for that experience. So I look back at it and I have a lot of gratitude for it.
You turned your pain into purpose. And I think that that's when it makes it hurt a lot less, when you're like, at least I'm helping so many people from this experience that I went through.
100%. No, I'm a broken record on my TikTok and Instagram. Like, it's just when you go through chapters of grief, it's also an incredible chapter of growth if you allow it to be. And that's just kind of the mentality that I've had. I'm like, all right, I'm going through this experience. It is what it is. I can't change it. My ego wants it to be different than it is, but this is the nature of the experience. It's very challenging, but I had a choice to either succumb to those feelings of grief and wallow in them day after day after day, or I could choose to, use it as a catalyst for growth. And I chose that path because, I've been on this journey of healing for, 4 or 5 years. And I was like, I have all the tools. Like, this is my moment to truly apply them all. And it's been a beautiful journey, a tumultuous one, but a beautiful one.
I know, it's in the middle. You think it's never going to end. The grief can be really heavy after a relationship. And for anyone who's going through that, I want to kind of speak to that. What was your experience with the grief of leaving the relationship? Like, were there moments of wondering if you made the right decision? Or I'm going to speak for myself. When I was going through it, there was no one online, honestly, except you, that was talking about like how long the grief was lasting. Sometimes I still feel little spurts of grief, and it's been over a year for me. So I want to talk about the grief journey and normalize it. Like, what does the grief journey look like like for you. And yeah, anything that you want to share about your grief journey.
Yeah, no, 100%. Similar to you, like there's still moments where I get emotional, and it's been over a year for me as well. And I look back and I'm like, did I make the right choice? But I
Yeah.
think those moments of confusion, doubt, and uncertainty are super normal, especially if you have come out of a long-term relationship. Letting go of something that you held on to for so long, it's hard, right? And there's going to be so many moments of nostalgia and just uncertainty, doubt, and confusion that come up along the way. That's perfectly natural, but I think that's just part of the journey of embracing change and stepping out into the unknown. It's not meant to be easy. If it were, everyone would be doing it. But my journey of grief it was hard. Like I spent days, if not weeks, crying in my bed, like sitting in a dark room because my whole life had shattered. And on top of just going through the grief, I was going through a lot of mental blocks because, as I mentioned earlier, so many of my friends are married, have kids. And so I just felt like, what am I doing wrong here? How did I end up here? I'm on a whole different path. I felt so isolated and like I just didn't have anyone. That created a whole another wave of grief in of itself, but definitely a lot of tears and, questions where I was asking myself, did I make the right decision? And ultimately I had to reflect on that and realize, I came to this decision after reflecting on it for maybe years, if not months. And it was my truth at the end of the day. And so it's like the universe and myself brought me here for a reason. So I had to keep reminding myself of that. Like, this is the right decision. And if it's meant to be, it will be.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of the biggest tools that you use during the grief period? You know, those moments where you're crying day in and day out. I've been there as well, crying in my parents' bedroom, not my parents' bedroom, but a bedroom in my parents' house, a dark room for days. And when you're in grief, it feels like you're never gonna get out. Like you're not at the frequency or the consciousness where you can see a way out. I know that there's probably a couple people that are listening to this podcast right now that are right there. And so, what are some tools? What are some mindset shifts that you used or still use that help with that grief journey
Yeah.
in the middle?
Yeah, no. At first I didn't know what to do. Like I feel like it was just crying, letting it out, giving yourself that compassion and that space to grieve as much as you need to, because there's so much emotion that comes out of an experience like that. But one of the mindset shifts that I personally used was just recognizing that that's how the heart expresses itself. Like grief is, it's a musical note of the heart, right? It's just one of the noises that it makes, and it's how it expresses itself. So when I was
Mhm.
going through those deep waves of grief, I was just like, you know what? This is what my heart needs right now. So like just let it play its music, same with joy and excitement, anger, anxiety, all of it. They're just, experiences of the heart and how the heart expresses itself. So that's just kind of the mindset I kind of kept reminding myself throughout the journey. I was like, this is what my heart wants right now and what it needs. So that kind of gave me a bit more compassion, and it helped forgive myself along the way, because I think with grief, we become really hard on ourselves too,
Like,
because
I
we're
shouldn't be feeling this.
yeah, and it's that mindset too, where we think we shouldn't be feeling a specific way or things should be different. And that's a whole nother mental block, because in reality, we've got to transcend that voice that's telling ourselves that things need to be different than they are, because that creates resistance with our emotions and just with life itself. And it creates this internal battle with what's going on inside. And then it creates we end up at war with life, because we're telling ourselves like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be going through this. Life should be different. But in reality, when you can just slow down, surrender to the what's unfolding in front of you, and give yourself permission to just accept what is, it creates a lot more space to experience a little bit of peace in those deep moments of grief.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because one of the things that got me through is that same aspect of acceptance. It's like nothing is actually wrong. My ego thinks that something is wrong right now, but what if everything is actually exactly right? Because it is. And in every moment, it's exactly right. And this can be so relevant in any area, whether you think you should have more clients in your coaching business, or you think that you should be in that relationship, or you think that you should be getting back together, or you think anything. You think that you and your friend should be friends still, and you're not. It's like you think it should be that way. Your ego is trying to attach to the timeline that it thinks is right, but there's actually no right or wrong. It's all perfect, but you just can't see that looking forward. You can only see it looking back.
Yeah, no, our ego limits us in so many ways. And it's that mindset, right? Where we think life needs to be different than it is. But the only thing that needs to be different is the way that we're viewing life, right? We need to just like
Mhm.
step back from that mentality and be like, all right, life is great as it is. It's just the beliefs I'm holding about how you think life should be. When you let go of that part of you that's trying to manipulate life, control it, and or change it, it liberates you in a lot of ways. And that's kind of the work I try to do with my clients is help them let go of that part of themselves. And I hate that word should. I'm like, we're not using that word here.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about the impermanence of life because honestly, through my journey, I think that this was one of the most devastating and simultaneously freeing things that I really got to understand is my naive self. My Venus is in Pisces for all the astrology girlies. So like I think of love as like a very like Cinderella-esque type thing. I'm like, this is gonna be my partner forever. And when I went through the breakup, it really, really to my core showed me about the impermanence of life. Like nothing is forever. The grief isn't forever. No relationship in your life is forever. And I've really come to the terms, I've actually been working through this week of the only thing that you can rely on like for forever is like your relationship with the source, is like your love that you can get internally. And I've been kind of struggling with this because I'm kind of going on a tangent here. But as I open my heart up again, or prepare to rather, I'm like, even if I open my heart again, it's not, I can still get hurt. It's not forever. And so, what was your journey with realizing about like the impermanence of life? Because I feel like everyone who's gone through a breakup kind of has that moment of like, fuck, like this is so temporary and I can't really rely on anything now.
No, nothing lasts forever has been another big mentality that I've had. Like, I don't even know how I started to foster that, but I think it was the breakup itself just made me realize, I'm like, this relationship, even though it was 8 years, like, it's not meant to last forever. Like, relationships come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I do kind of believe that. I just feel that we have this mentality of things should last forever, which then creates this clinging aspect. We latch on to them because we're like, I need you to stay in my life because you're bringing
Forever.
X, Y, Z into my life. So it's like, you
Yeah.
need to stay in order to bring me happiness. But I feel that nothing does last forever. And when you can foster that mentality, it's so liberating and it just frees you in so many aspects because you
Mhm.
realize nothing's permanent, right? Like everything has a season, everything's going to unfold as it needs to. And I think every experience in life teaches you something. And so when you can shift your being from focusing on needing something to last forever, but rather focusing on what is this teaching me? How, like, what can I gain from this experience? It really helps you kind of just move forward. And that's kind of how I fostered looking at my relationship. I'm just like, it didn't last forever. That's okay. But I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about what I want out of the future. And yeah, I'm excited to date again. And I'm in back in the dating game. And if I've had situationships that didn't last, but I'm like, you know what? I learned more about myself. I had a good time. Like it doesn't need to last forever because, it just creates this latching on and then it kind of takes away from the experience. But when you can kind of just surrender and let go of wanting it to last forever, it allows you to actually see the experience for what it is, which is an experience.
Exactly. And I think that when we have the awareness that nothing lasts forever, we can actually be completely present with people and places and things that we're going through and almost have this higher level of gratitude for it because we're like, I'm never going to get this moment with this person in this way again. So let me just fully be here without expectation. And I've found that, the little bit of dating that I've done, it's like when I go in with the mindset of like the impermanence, I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be at dinner with this person again. So like let me just really be here and be fully present and like have as much fun as I can. I find that it releases kind of expectations for the future because if you're only looking for your fucking forever, that's not even real. Like that's not even true. Even if you find your next partner, you might be with them for 20 years, but guess what? It's gonna end too. And so it's like I really have been trying to foster this idea of loving the impermanence versus resisting it because because if you think about it, I don't know where we learned this idea that relationships are supposed to last forever, but I do think that that's one of the reasons that people are in so much pain after relationships and friendships too. You know, we kind of think that if we're friends with somebody, we should be friends with them forever, but it's just not the reality of the human experience.
No, and so true because again, it creates so much resistance with life. We end up at war with life because we've decided in our mind how things should be, and then when reality doesn't match, we suffer. So if we are believing and feeling that a relationship, romantic or platonic, should last forever, and then it ends, we end up creating so much internal suffering because of this
Mm.
mentality that we've fostered. But nothing is supposed to last forever. And in the grand scheme of things, too, everything ends. Like relationships are either going to end from death or a breakup. And that's not
Yep.
even being a cynic. That's just the fucking truth.
I've had that exact same thought of like literally every single relationship will end through death or breakup and you can't stop it no matter what you do.
So,
And it's, oh, these are kind of like hard truths to swallow, but they're also very freeing when you fully, live by them. So I love that we're talking about it. So I know that you had your grief journey, but I want to talk about some other, tools, modalities. I know that you were microdosing a little bit and you had some other things that helped you along the way. So what are, I don't know, the top two or three things other than just letting yourself accept it and feel it that helped you move through the breakup?
yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things for me was solo travel, which might sound
Mm,
crazy, but like that
yeah.
was one of the biggest things because it really threw me outside my comfort zone because
Okay.
I've never done that before.
Okay.
And
I feel
I've
like you're always on a trip alone now.
always, I love it. But for the longest time, because, from a young age, well, not, I guess from age 18 until, age 29, I was in relationships essentially. I think I had 2 years in college where I was single, but I was the most unconscious individual possible. But I've always had another person in my life to spend time with, to lean on, to experience life with. And so when I came out of my relationship, I was like, you know what? I don't have anyone else other than me. And like, I'm the most consistent thing in my life. So if I want my life to be better, like, I've got to start learning to have fun with just me, lean on myself, love myself, have fun with myself. And so I figured one of the best ways to do that was like, let's go on a trip. And it was such a step outside my comfort zone. I went to England and Scotland by myself for, I think, like 10 days. And it was the most liberating experience because one, you face so many fears because you think like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to spend time with? Who am I going to talk to? Will I meet anyone? And in reality, it's a lot easier to meet people when you're traveling alone than you think. And it also just allows you to realize that no one gives a fuck about what you're doing. Like I had fears of people looking at me and being like, oh, she's eating dinner alone. Like that's so sad. But it's like, no one actually cares. Like no one's thinking that. But those are limiting beliefs, right? That are just trying to like keep you safe and like prevent you from experiencing fear or rejection or whatever it may be. And so solo travel was a huge one for me that just absolutely skyrocketed my confidence and helped me really cultivate more love within the relationship with myself because now I travel alone all the time and I literally prefer it because I'm on my own.
Really?
Yeah, I can do whatever I want. I'm on my own schedule. Like I don't have to adhere to anyone else's time frame. I have fun with me, and that's something I've never had, and it's just been such a liberating experience.
Oh my gosh, I'm honestly inspired by that. And it's so true that when you're alone somewhere, like you have all these things that you think people are like it really puts you up against all those limiting beliefs, right? It's kind of like what I'm comparing it to is starting a business. Like all your shit's going to come to the surface, and you're going to have to either transmute it or not go, right? And it sounds like there was just so much growth, and now you're moving, right? You're moving to a new city.
Yes, that was another kind of reason why my partner and I split. Like he never wanted to move. He does real estate in, Boston, where we're from. And I always wanted to move. Like I'm a Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius North node. So I'm like,
There you go.
yeah, I need to get out of here. And so now that I'm just this free bird, I'm taking the plunge and I love Colorado. So I'm planning on moving here.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense that you're Sagittarius North Node and rising. Like you're meant to just go and do your thing. And the Sagittarius is is that energy of like going to all these places and then like bringing the wisdom back. And so that's exactly what you're doing. Like you're going to have all these experiences and then bringing them back into the world through TikTok or through helping your clients, which is just, I don't know. I feel like astrology is so on point sometimes. I'm like, there's no way that this is not real.
knows, like it is written in the stars. Like,
Literally written.
I know it's crazy. And I've really tried stepping more into that Sagittarius energy, especially in this
Mhm.
past year, just through solo travel and, through teaching about the things that I've learned and gained from this entire experience. So that's really helped.
Yeah, and the Sagittarius, it's so interesting because like I feel like on TikTok, you're very much so this in this like teacher energy. It's like, hey, if you're going through this, like this is how you're going to transmute it. And that Sagittarius is the teacher. It's the person who came back and is giving the wisdom. So I feel like you fully embody that, which is a perfect segue to let's talk about the identity shift that happens when you're in a relationship for 8 years and then you are single and you have no idea where your life is going to go. I think that that was maybe one of the hardest things for me is like recreating the new identity, getting new clothes, like understanding who you are. So what was that like for you of creating this Audrey 3.0? What was the process of doing that? Like just even some 3D things like getting new clothes or wearing different makeup. Like what did that look like for you?
Yeah. Oh God. It was a journey because again, my entire identity shattered, right?
Yep.
Like I had no idea who I was without my ex. I was so lost. I was just at total rock bottom. I was like, I don't know who I am outside of a relationship. But that forced me to realize that the only relationship that I have is actually with me. Like everyone else is just a bonus. So rebuilding that was a journey, but I think a lot of the things that helped me were just trying new things because I was like, this is an opportunity for me to just kind of rediscover and reinvent myself. Like I have literally no other option but to do that because if I don't know who I am, how am I going to figure it out if I don't try? So I just started doing all these things like solo travel. I started microdosing. I started literally like just spending more time outside in nature, like taking myself on solo dates, like trying to, show up more on social media in new ways, just like little random shifts
Mhm.
to help me step into who I want to be. Because I kept thinking about what I want my vision of the future to be like. That's half the reason I left my relationship because I just envisioned something for myself. And I was like, this is my time to like start doing those things, like baby steps,
Mhm.
of course. And so it was really just about giving myself the opportunity to explore new things and embrace new hobbies and just try new things. It was fucking terrifying, especially
Yeah.
doing a lot of it alone, but it's very liberating.
Yeah, and I think that there's also this sobering moment when you're going through it. You're like, honestly, everyone is kind of alone out here. And I gotta like really just make this relationship with myself good because I mean, I'm alone all the time. And when you go from that like constant companionship of like being in that long-term relationship where you guys plan what you're gonna eat for dinner together, you plan going to the grocery store together. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, because we were together during COVID, it did become a little bit codependent for me. It's like now you're alone and it's this whole new era of like, well, what do only I want for dinner? It feels foreign just to ask yourself those simple questions, but I totally agree. Like you have to just treat yourself like a child. Like let me just try new things. Let me try pickleball. Let me try all these things and it's like this trial and error of what you like, what you don't like, what makes you feel alive. And I always also think that that's just a part of finding yourself. Like you just have to try new things.
Yeah, and I think like I don't even love like I love everything you said. I just feel like when we try to view it as finding ourselves, it can also be like limiting because then we're on this like endless search. So the way I like
Mhm.
to view it is more like letting go of the self. It's like letting go of that identity that I fostered for so long
Mm.
and reconnecting with who I am at my core and like reconnecting with source essentially and letting
Yeah.
go of all of those limiting beliefs and past narratives and all those stories that I was holding about myself so that I can actually connect with who I actually am and the truth of who I am.
Yeah, it's like it's there all along. It's just like
Mhm.
kind of covered up by past identities and limiting beliefs and societal conditioning. So really just discovering who you are at your core and your root. And it's like it's crazy that it's never ending. Like we can always discover more and we can always be more authentic and we can always be more of us. It just takes this constant unfolding.
Yeah, it's a journey. Like it's truly a journey. That I say that to everyone and to my clients too. Like it's just there's so many ebbs and flows. There's moments where I still have a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, and I'm still like, I still don't know who I am. But there's people in their 60s that still are figuring it out. And I think it's just about embracing that aspect of you're never gonna have it fully figured out, but like learn to enjoy the ebbs and flows of the journey and just like enjoy rediscovering yourself all the time.
Yeah, and I think that we have to get used to that again, that cycle of death and rebirth. I tell my friend, I was telling my friend the other day, I was like, as soon as I feel like I know myself, I feel like I go through another death. Like I was talking about in the sense of my business. I was like, as soon as I feel like I like get something down in my business, I'm like, well, I've outgrown that, so I have to start over. And I think that that actually is just the journey of life. Like you are an identity, and then you outgrow that identity, and then have a new identity, and then you outgrow that identity, and it's not good or bad. It's just the evolution of being human. Like our soul is always expanding, always growing, always transforming. And when you resist that transforming, you resist the very thing that like keeps us alive. Like source is the energy of creation. So you're at your core, we're just creating and creating and creating, and there's no end to the creating.
Yeah, no, it's wild. It's literally never ending. And I love what you said about like the death and rebirth. Like it's constant. Like we're constantly changing. And that's the most constant thing in life is change and also the relationship we have with ourselves. So if we can just kind of embrace the changes of life and the changes that we go through internally and externally, it just makes life a lot more fun because we can experience life for what it is rather than what we want
Yeah.
it to be. And we can actually learn and enjoy experiences and be more present for them, like you were saying
Yeah,
earlier.
exactly. Did you experience that, with the ending of a relationship? Did you have a lot of like maybe friendships or connections that you guys both had together that had to end as well? Like what was the journey with that?
Yeah, good question. We still have a lot of friends in common, and I'm not the type of person that would be like, you can't hang out with them. Like, he became very close
Sure.
with a lot of my friends from high school, and he still hangs out with them one on one. And I'm totally fine with that because I'm like, you've been friends with these people for 8 years. Like, who am I to, stand in that way? But I've actually had other relationships end outside of our romantic relationship, like friendships end. I had friends that I thought were going to be there for me that were not at all. So that kind of was very disappointing. I think when you go through a tumultuous journey like that, you have expectations, whether they're conscious or unconscious, about how people should show up for you. And there were some people in my life that did not show up at all. And I'm no longer friends with those people because it kind of spoke volumes to me about their true colors and their true intentions with our friendship. And so that was like a whole nother can of worms on that journey.
Yeah, when you go through a breakup, guys, you see people's true colors. For me as well, there was people that like, and when you're going through that something that emotional, it's almost like you don't have room to even like deal with people that are not being good for you. You're like, I'm just trying to like get by day by day. And if you can't really be here to support this at my lowest hour and like you're just gonna kick me when I'm down or just not be there, it's just you don't have room for it. Like emotionally, it's not that even like an egoic thing. Like you just don't emotionally have room to deal with it. So I think that is like a normal part, even though it's one of the harder parts because, not only are you grieving a romantic relationship, now you're having to let go of friendships too. You're like, holy shit, this is a lot. But I do think that the ending of relationships are, quantum leaps in disguise. And I think that there's this narrative about quantum leaps is that like they're beautiful, right? But I always remind my clients, like, I'm like, be careful what you wish for because, like, a quantum leap does mean that your entire reality is dematerializing very quickly. So a new reality can come about. And that dematerialization isn't beautiful sometimes. It's actually very painful for a human to have their life dematerialize, like we have attachments, we're human. And I think that that just comes with the territory of just a major shift in your timeline. But it's just, it's hard.
Yeah, no, everything shatters and you are just left to pick up the pieces. And, sometimes when we're on this manifestation journey too, we want things to be so different. We're trying to call
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but that means that you've got to let go of everything that you're holding on to. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of this whole past year of my life, give or take maybe a little prior to it too. It's just so much shit fell apart. Like, oh my God, I'm not prepared for this. But then I realized too, like that is the universe creating space for what's actually trying to come into my life. And since
Exactly.
letting go of the past, it's brought in so much more abundance. And it's again, so it's death and rebirth all the time.
And I think that there is this beautiful vibration that you hold after losing so much. I don't know about you, but I feel like after losing so many things that I loved so much and so many friendships in that process and so much of like my identity, like my home and a lot of even like my clothes or things like that, it's like you kind of feel a little bit unshakable in a way. You're just like, I'm not scared to lose things anymore. And when you're living life scared to lose things, it's actually keeping your vibration down. It's actually keeping you from being in that unknown because you're trying to hold on and people please so that you hold on to those things. But when you're really trusting in the source, right? When you're really trusting source, when you're really okay with the unknown, when you know I'm going to be okay no matter what, I'm going to be okay no matter who comes and goes, I'm going to be okay because I got me. That is such a strong vibration to live in. It is the vibration of trust and of like pure potentiality and pure possibility because we can't be in pure possibility and also trying to be predicting or holding on to things from our old identities or even our current identities, right? And so do you feel like now you are stronger or you feel more unshakable?
Oh, 100%. I feel like this past year has really helped me step into my power in so many ways. It's still like an unfolding journey that's ongoing all the time. And there's obviously things that come up for me that are testing or and triggering in so many different ways. But yeah, I think when you go through something that's so life altering and really just kind of again makes your whole life shatter, you are the only one left to pick up the pieces. No one's going to do it for you. No one's
No
going to
one
come
can.
you. Yeah. So that really just makes you realize like it's on me and it pushes you to step into your potential. It pushes you to step into your own truth and your own power and your
Mm.
infinite potential. And that's definitely what happened for me. And I think for anyone listening, like this is a chapter, if you're going through grief, like this is a chapter to really turn it into growth and to step into who you want to be. And the hard truth is no one's coming to save you. And that was really hard for me to swallow. I wanted to lean on friends, family, anyone,
Who could
substance
hold,
for
yeah.
support. Yeah, like anything to help me get through it. But I was like, you know what? None of that shit's gonna help. Like it's still me at the end of the day. Like I'm the one that I wake up with every day. I go to bed with me every night. Like I'm the one that needs to hold myself accountable and pull myself through this experience. And I think just coming out of that experience helped me become more unshakable because I realized like I can do this. Like I'm gonna be okay. I got through it. I'm gonna get through every other hardship because it's all temporary. Like it's never gonna last. But it's tough in the moment, but it's also just a fleeting experience, like
Yeah.
everything is.
Yes, it's so true and I love it. And for anyone who thinks they're not going to get through it or thinks that it's never going to get better, like just give yourself 6 months and just even when I didn't think it was going to get better, because honestly, my grief journey was long. I mean, sometimes, like I said, I'm going to be really transparent because I feel like there's not a lot of transparency online about like how long it can last. Like it still comes up for me. It's still something that I have to transmute every now and then when I'm just really in a dark place. So with your new life, you're moving and all the excitement, we talked about a lot of things that, maybe I don't want to call them negative, but are like the harder parts of your journey. Now you're like stepping into the unknown, you're dating. How is I mean, I'm literally asking for myself. I'm like, how's the journey of putting yourself back out there and dating again? Like, what's that been like for you? Or like, what are your tips?
I'm gonna be super transparent. It is a triggering journey. Like,
Really triggering. Okay, why?
yes. Because I haven't been in the dating game since I was what, 20, 21, and like now I'm gonna be 31 this year. So it's just like it's a culture shock to me. And I feel like because I was in an 8 year or so relationship, I got so accustomed to my ways. Like I understood this person inside and out. He understood me inside and out. So like jumping back into the dating game where you're learning about people and trying to figure out their personalities. It's just like it's a giant question mark, but and it
Mm,
brings up a lot of internal wounds that I still have to deal with. I'm like, I thought I healed from this, but it's coming back up again. So it's triggering
interesting.
in that way because I'm just navigating so many new personalities and like thought processes. But it's also really fun because it's an experience, right? Like it's just an experience to enjoy. I'm like, I'm also getting to meet all these new people, like do all these fun new things. Like, and it's just triggering but fun at the same time because you just get
Hmm.
to put yourself out there and embrace these experiences of life and meet new people, have awesome conversations, like have good food or whatever it may be. And I'm enjoying it to say the least.
Good. What's your method? Do we meet them out in the wild? Do you use dating apps? Like for anyone who's navigating dating after a long-term relationship, give us the deets.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not a person who loves dating apps. I don't have a problem with them. I just, for some reason, I have resistance to them because I like to
Yeah.
meet people a bit more organically.
Love.
Uh, just, I'm a 4-1 manifester in human design. So, like, the four means
I
that I
get
just,
that for I have
yeah.
that for a line too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love community and, meeting people in my community. I have met people organically through friends of friends. Actually, I'm in a situationship right now with a guy who it's kind of weird. It's like I'll come back to that. I'll circle back to that. But the first guy that I kind of dated after my long-term relationship, I met through a friend of a friend. And then I met someone who I'm seeing now who he was in my life maybe 10 years ago. I was dating his friend prior to my ex, and we never like connected. I never met him, but he knew of me because he was friends with my ex at that time when I was like 20 years old. And then he wanted to pursue me at one point in time, but then I was in a relationship for 8 years. And then he reached out to me on Instagram, I want to say in September of last year. He like shoot his shot.
Shot his
And
shot.
yeah.
Hi,
And
King.
yeah, yeah. He was like, "Hey, like, I'd love to take you out. Like, I came out of a relationship around the same time as you. Like, you've popped up on my feed, and I didn't really know who he was at the time, but the name sounded familiar, and so he tried
Mm,
asking me out, and I was seeing another kid at the time. I was like, "Oh, sorry. Like, I'm kind of seeing someone right now who I'm really interested in." So it just like the timing never lined up for like 10 years. And then in January of this year, things just started to line up and we connected, and it just kind of felt like the universe string theory, like the universe kept us apart for a very long time, but we were always
connected
right
in
here.
some way.
Yeah, like he lives in the town next to my ex, like knows similar friends of his, like we were always right there and we just like never met. And so it's been fun really like spending time with them right now, but
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. So you're exploring your invisible string theory right
yeah,
now. We
I
love
am.
this. Wow, that is actually a really good story. And it's so cool how, you just never know where things are going to come out. Like they really do come out of the woodworks. And you're like, wow, never could have imagined that. And that's something that I've been learning about, living in the unknown is if you're trying to predict how you're going to meet your partner, or you're trying to predict how you're going to meet your new friends or how something is going to come through, you're still kind of living matter to matter. This is like some of Joe Dispenza's teachings, which I'm really into. My podcast knows I'm obsessed, but it's like you're kind of creating from the predictable past or the familiar future, or the familiar past or predictable future is what I mean. And when things are really kind of like from, let's say, the quantum field, it's like that. Like you could have never predicted that this guy was going to drop into your Instagram DMs, but it's so random you could have never predicted it. And so it's kind of cool to hear stories like this that will just expand everyone listening of just like it really can happen in random ways. Just stay open.
Yeah, it's really about just staying open and not having those expectations like we've talked about earlier, because those just limit you because you're essentially trying to decide how life should be and how you want your life to unfold, how you want to be
Mm,
your specific person, and that closes you off to so many endless potentials. So
yeah.
yeah, just stay open and just put yourself out there. Take risks, go solo travel, like go take
Yeah.
yourself out on a date, go pick up a new hobby. Like there's so many endless ways that you can meet someone when you're back in the dating game. And I think if you just have one particular way of thinking of how you're going to meet that person, it just really closes you off. So it's just staying open and putting yourself in the situations of where you might meet the person who has similar interests to you in a way.
For other people who are like, yeah, Audrey, I don't like dating apps and I want to go like just meet people out in the wild, what are other things that, obviously maybe not right now you're doing, but like do you go out to dinner and like sit at the bar or do you talk to people or yeah, like what are some other maybe inspirational things that people can attach to?
Yeah, 100%. Part of that journey for me was reflecting on what do I want out of my next partner? Like, what are the characteristics of that? And so I try to put myself in positions where I might like meet someone in that sense, right? Like, if I want them to be doing yoga, like I'm going to show up at yoga classes, right? So I go to yoga frequently. If I want them to be interested in health and wellness, like I'm going to go to Whole Foods, it's just, yeah, like all little things like that. But also, yeah, I'll take myself out to dinner and I'll sit at the bar and I'll try to strike up conversations with people. And solo travel too is huge. Like when I went to Scotland and London last year, I stayed in hostels because I was like, I want to meet other solo travelers. Not that I was looking for a relationship, but it helps create relationships in general, romantic or platonic. And so it's just putting yourself in the places of where you're going to meet like-minded people and taking that leap out into the unknown.
I think that's a really good point, and that's what I've been trying to do too is asking myself like what are the interests that I want to share with this person and like where would they be? Like if I really could pick, where would my man be right now? I've been going to like a lot of retreats and like conferences and I don't know, entrepreneurship things because I desire, my person to just be very kind of like a go-getter and entrepreneurial and on a personal growth journey that is one of my non-negotiables and I'm like my man's going to be going to retreats alone and it's expanding in any way because although I haven't obviously met anyone have met so many guy friends that have expanded the fuck out of me like I just met this guy friend that or a couple guy friends actually and they're at these personal growth seminars and things and they're alone and they're just like yeah this is just like what I like to do for fun and it just like when you haven't seen that in person you don't even know that that's possible right maybe you're going on a snowboarding trip and you're meeting another solo snowboarder alone you're like I didn't even know that was possible to meet someone that was doing the same thing that I'm doing but it's
Yeah.
so cool just to have an expanded awareness and be like okay now that I know that this is possible I can get even more specific of like the archetype or whatever that I'm calling in and then also balancing that with what you're saying is like staying open and like not trying to predict every little detail because typically it's not exactly what you think in your mind anyway.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's so true. It's just like you don't know what's out there until you put yourself out there. So it's like, yeah, I take myself on snowboarding trips because I'm like, I want my next partner to be a snowboarder too and like to want to do these things. And so it's just, I didn't even realize that was a thing. Like, there's so many solo skiers and snowboarders out there, like to your point, and like
Yeah.
didn't realize that was a thing until I started doing it myself. And same with the retreat thing. And it's like until you put yourself in the positions of where you want to meet a specific person, like you don't know what's out there. And it just like really blows the shit out of the water because you just understand that there's endless potential and there's like 8 billion people on this planet and there's just so much to learn and experience from other people.
Yeah, and sometimes you really got to get out of your comfort zone and get out of your daily day to day to
Yeah.
just remember how many people and how many experiences and like life is really there for you to go grab it. So you kind of got to go grab it.
100%. Like we're on this planet to experience life. So put yourself in positions to fully experience it.
Love this so much. Oh my gosh. Well, this was such a good conversation, Audrey. Do you have any last things that you want to share with the audience that might be going through a similar journey as you or yeah, like any like last words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think one thing that always comes to mind on this journey is just remembering that what is personal is universal. We're all
Mm.
going through similar shit. Like it might seem different on the external side of things. Like no matter what you see on social media and on anyone's page, like we're all going through our own internal battles and we're all just fighting our own individual wars. So be compassionate with yourself on this journey and don't get lost in comparison, especially when you're on a grief journey or a breakup journey. Like there's people that reach out to me, they're like, how are you okay after like a year? Like I've been out of my relationship for 2 years. I'm still struggling with grief. And I remind people there's no time frame for grief. Like it's just your own journey. Like it's gonna take time to let go when you've held on for so long. So I think just learning that we're all fighting our own individual wars and to just kind of hold space for yourself, let go of the external comparison, and remember that you're not alone in this journey is just the most important thing. And just always also remember, like, you're the most consistent thing in your life. So show up for yourself every single day and learn to love yourself along the way because it's going to really heal your internal and external worlds.
I love that so much. And it's so true. I was actually in a I haven't talked about this with my audience yet, but I was like in a mushroom trip not too long ago. And the whole time I just kept on saying these words. I'm like, we're alone and we're not. Like, we're alone and we're not. Like, I was just trying to conceptualize the fact that, like, I actually am fucking alone on this earth. Like, genuinely, I am. Like, nobody can do this for me. Nobody can fight my battles for me. And simultaneously, like, we're so not alone. It's like, we always kind of have somebody or people, or the universe puts people in our life, or maybe it's even like you think you're going through this alone, but you're not really going through it alone. Like so many other people are going through it too. And I think it's that and consciousness of the duality of like, you are alone and you're not. And it can be both true. But I love just rooting into yourself and finding that strength within, because at the end of the day, it's like you and you for the rest of your life. You came in this world alone, you're going to leave alone, and you got to figure out how to love yourself.
Like you're the most consistent thing that you have in this life. So you might as well learn to just enjoy your own company, love your own company, have fun with
Yes.
you and just embrace the fuck out of life with yourself.
Yeah. And are you going through your Saturn return, by the way? Or are you done with yours?
Oh God, that was the whole last 3 years for me. So that's another reason why my whole life shattered.
Yeah. I'm in my Saturn return still. So I'm like, the Saturn return is no fucking joke.
Oh, my whole life did a 180 on so many levels, but it was like a blessing because it made me see so many truths, like so many expired parts of my life that I had to let go of.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day and it was saying like the Saturn, it's like, don't be scared of your Saturn return. I'm like, yeah, don't be scared, but also it is hard. I mean, it depends. Some people just get married and have kids and like,
Yeah.
it depends if you have a light or dark chart. But what I'm trying to say is they were saying it's almost this initiation into adulthood. And I actually, now that I'm almost done with mine, I have a little bit more left, but I'm like, it really is that almost line in the sand of like I'm kind of just floating through life to like I'm an adult and I've had to deal with really hard things, and now I'm really kind of like initiated into this next chapter.
No, it really like puts things into perspective and just like helps you grow in a whole different level because it makes you face a lot of deep truths and you're like, oh shit. And like, but it helps you grow up. Like it creates a lot of structure in your life where you
Sure.
are learning to navigate life a bit differently from a higher perspective.
Higher perspective, higher state of consciousness, and I think that it really is there to make your life better, not worse. And something I just want to remind everyone, I guess like my last words of wisdom is like if it's not okay yet, if you're not feeling good about it yet, like it's just not over. And I remind myself this, like I'm saying this because like this is what I tell myself. And I learned this, I always talk about my mushroom trips, but I learned this in a
I
mushroom
love
trip
it. I
too.
love
I
it.
learned it in a mushroom trip. Like I had this really bad mushroom trip and it was like I was in the middle of it still and I was with my friend at the time. I was like, I don't get why we did this. This is really bad still. I don't get it yet. Like I don't get it. And she just kept on saying to me, Kristen, she was on the other side fully and she was feeling that like source consciousness and that love and like that like I made it. And she was like, if you don't feel good yet, it's just not over. And that was the biggest lesson that I had from that. I'm like, oh my God, if you're in the middle of something and you don't see the gift and you don't feel fucking so grateful for it yet, it's just not over. And so you just have to hold on a little more to
Yeah.
get to the point where you can see the gift in it because it will be over eventually because everything ends and you will be like, that was perfect. I needed every single second of that. And I just had to wait until the end. So it's this beautiful unfolding of like trusting deeper and deeper and deeper.
No, I love that. And like one thing that I always say to my clients too is like these journeys of life, going through going through the grief of a breakup or losing a job or whatever it may be, it's a journey. Like it's an emotionally turbulent journey, but it's like a roller coaster, right? Like there's ups and downs of the journey, but we're always going in forward motion on a roller coaster. Like, even though it's tumultuous, even though there's so many highs and lows, we're always in forward motion. So, like, even though it feels like shit right now and you're going through this lull and this low chapter, you're still moving in forward motion. So, trust the
Yeah.
journey, trust the process, and know that you're going where you need to go and you're going to get to where you want to be, but you have to hold on.
Yeah. Oh, so, so good. Well, thank you so much, Audrey, for coming on Alignment Academy. Where can my audience find you, stay connected with you? Give us all the deets on, yeah, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, no, it's such an honor to be here. I loved it so much. But everyone, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is Audrey A Brothers, I believe, for both. And if you want to work with me, you can head to my website, which is www.audreybrothers.com. And I also have a podcast with my co-host Sarah Locks, who is a nervous system regulation coach. That's called The Same Podcast.
Yay, awesome. I'll link her socials below, all of the key links so you guys can follow her because especially if you're going through any relationship or grief journey, I'm telling you guys, like I followed her before we even connected because I love your content. So thank you so much, Audrey, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Everyone.